My name's Nick Thornton. I spent 10 years as president of VCTA, 10 very happy years I might say, but I've been a member of the organisation for 57 years, not an amount I want to count particularly.
I think I probably started back with the VCTA even before I started teaching, because I was fortunate enough at uni to have a number of prominent VCTA people as my teachers.
Everything started when I got seconded to VCTA in my second year of teaching. I'd already become a member in my teacher training year.
I've been a member of VCTA since either 1960 or 1961, and our method lecturers encouraged us to join the VCTA.
It was a no-brainer to join the VCTA. Everybody just joined, anybody with sense joined the VCTA because we knew that that was going to be the greatest support for a commerce teacher, business studies teacher coming out. So it was just, as I said, a no-brainer. You joined the VCTA.
Always needed resources, and I loved going to the sessions, especially at ComView, where I could walk in, listen to the presenter and think to myself, gosh, I can use that straight away in the classroom tomorrow.
So for me, my first introduction started back in about the second or third year. Rob Steer was one of my mentors there at uni. I had Roger Hawthorne, who was in my ear as a legal studies teacher. And then in my fourth year, my first official can you get involved, do something, was when Jules Eldos visited me on teaching rounds.
I remember going into a Year 11 economics class and thinking, this will be a snip, won't be a problem at all. And two kids in the front row asked a question in the first 5 minutes, and I thought, I think I need to look at some VCTA resources here, I'm in trouble. So that's the background.
My method people at that time was a person called Ian Green, and you sort of say, oh, Ian Green, bow down, because he was so natural but so highly regarded and so clever in helping trainee teachers. And so he inspired me to say, yeah, I want to be one of those. I want to be a legal studies teacher.
Then in my first year of teaching, I got a job in the country. I was the only accounting teacher in the school, and it really was VCTA that helped get me through those initial phases because there wasn't a lot of resources left in the school.
You had to gather resources from a whole range of places and people, and one of those was VCTA. Came and visited the library, paid my membership. So that was the defining moment.
Well, the fact that it's a major support for teachers, and that was the thing that actually kept me going. It also was the thing that made me do contributions to ComView and things like that, because I wanted to give back for things that had been given to me. So that was why I got engaged in giving sessions at ComView and going on the board and doing things like that.
The person who was the president before me was president for a relatively short period of time, and Ian was an accounting teacher at Trinity College, and he decided not to continue, and I was vice president alongside Mike Sherry at the time. And as it turned out, Mike became one of the executive directors of VCTA, and I took on the presidency.
Joan Sandy, or Joan Taylor as she is now, rang me, I think when I was at Huntingdale High School, and asked if I would put my hand up for vice president, which of course I did. And it sort of rolled on from there and over a number of years, and I think I was president for 2 stints in the 60s and 70s.
I became president of the local regional group, got speakers to come down or come up or come across to the Wimmera, and you could see straight away when I was asked, yes, this is a great place to be.
Our board is very open, very inclusive, very welcoming, and that's helped me to move into this position as president.
2 vice presidents I had, Mike Rowland and John Glasson, were amazing support for 10 years, and I kept saying halfway through the process, how about you guys take over? No, you're doing okay, you continue. So it was that sort of support that made an enormous difference.
One of the then presidents, Roy Francis, he was an original committee member, and he reported that the association's long campaign to allow both economics and accounting to be counted towards your matriculation. So the association, even at that early stage, was making its mark by putting pressure on Melbourne Uni and I guess on the education department.
I believe the VCTA has been instrumental in lots of different curriculum areas. And let's take the VCE. We've been very fortunate, and I use the word we because as a member of the board, the VCTA for many years, we've been able to influence how study designs look, the pedagogy that goes into the study design.
If I had to pick one thing that I guess I'm most proud of my own involvement in VCTA, it was that process around the development of the VCE.
The VCTA, through its affiliation with the BEA, has also had lots of influence in relation to the Australian curriculum. And that's actually assisted us to have a voice at a national level, but it also provides us with credibility at a state level as well.
We need to understand that different states do things slightly differently, and VCTA's role in BEA is to come to the table, not only just share what we do, but because we have such a legacy, we have the ability to support BEA and to support that work at a very high level.
So the 80s, with the move into more work into middle school commerce, that was a very, very prominent change. And of course, what came about as part of that package was ComView, which was Commercial Curriculum Review.
Leadership is around service, and I do believe in paying it forward. But I think at that time it was by Leonie. So she tapped me on the shoulder and said, look, have you thought about presenting this idea at ComView? And I presented lots of stuff to do with legal studies. And I had this view, it's important that I share it. And I did that via the VCTA.
If I reflect right back, I remember the first time I presented at ComView out at La Trobe. The accounting teacher I was talking about earlier, who was my year 11 and 12 accounting teacher, came in, he sat halfway up, right in the middle, right dead bang in front of me. And I know he did that deliberately, but at the time the front row filled up. And it filled up with people like Keith King, Julie Sullivan, Vicky Barron, and they were all sitting there. And as I started, they started nodding. That made it so much easier. So it wasn't all of a sudden me up the front, it was me and this great team of accounting teachers.
It was a great time to be around because it was all these teachers are saying, yeah, what a good idea. We want to come along. And the first couple were big, they were huge because people were there for one purpose. And then the movement started, what can VCTA do in that area?
We bought our first premises at 99 Queen's Parade. What a huge thing that was for little VCTA to actually go and buy a building.
We sold the building in Nicholson Street. And I remember going to the bank with the cheque for this building and investing it in the days when you could invest the money at 17%. And that paid our rent for the next premises in Paran for the next 3 years before we bought the Collingwood premises.
The purchase of the building was great foresight on the boards that were before me, but it did come with that big mortgage, which was a real challenge to service. There was no doubt about that.
Taking on a debt to buy our own premises, and of course that was a leader in all the subject associations. Sometime in the 1960s, Jim Sonneman and I mortgaged our houses to get the VCTA through a rough patch. We need an overdraft, and I think the manager nearly passed out. And the only way that they would give us any credit was if if they had mortgages on our houses. We've no idea what was in them. I've no idea whether they were for a limited term. For all I know, they still exist. So that was a memorable time.
I suppose the other big decision was the decision to sell publishing, and there was a bit of anguish around that. Are we doing the right thing? Now, as it's turned out, it was the right thing to do, but it's taken the organisation in another valuable direction.
It was imperative, I think, that we all recognised that we had to get into different ways of delivering materials and information and news and so on. And so the development of the website was really critical because it delivers information and news and classroom materials to teachers very quickly. There's no postage out or no costs involved in that, but it took money to set it up.
It was VCTA who helped numerous other subject associations to get started. That's something that VCTA should really be proud of.
The other major development, I reckon, that happened in my period of presidency, but I don't claim any credit for it, was the development of NCS and the work that Mike Rowland did in developing it, and then Christine following after that, has been so significant because it's provided an independent source of income apart from membership fees. And I think if you look at other subject associations, you see that there's a struggle, because if you don't have members and you don't run professional learning activities at a profit, then you're always going to be financially vulnerable.
I was listening to something on the radio the other day, and they were talking to some young people, and they had no idea about loans and interest and the need to service the loans and so. And I thought that's absolutely imperative information, and it's the sort of stuff that commerce teachers, business studies teachers, and the VCTA will deliver to students.
We need to ensure that they can see that these skills that they're learning are really part of, and an important part of, building the society that they're going to live in the future.
When I think of VCTA and think about all the work that happens that perhaps members don't see day to day, but it's all that advocacy work that the association does, it is really vital that we're doing that work, because there is so much that has happened. So I think we are now seeing in the media, yes, we're seeing a little bit more talk of terms like economic literacy. I think those things are so critical, and it's how VCTA works together with other associations, even in other jurisdictions, to really push the case for the place in the curriculum for this work. Because if it's not happening at schools, where is it going to happen?
We're in a really good position. We have the right people in place. We've got an amazing staff at the VCTA who are forward thinking and forward looking. And so from my perspective, we need to keep our eye on the future. Whatever is coming our way, we then need to go backwards by design and look at how will that impact our members.
There's been so many taps on the shoulder along the way. So perhaps as teachers, we're not good at putting ourselves forward for things, and I think VCTA supports its members to do that.
There are so many opportunities were provided right at the very beginning for members to become involved. You could go to conferences, you could go and meet the examiners, and that's another VCTA initiative.
In 2017, I was given the President's Award. So I was given that award at Conview, and enjoyed it being presented there, because I was actually able to then say thank you to the members.
You could join a group. You could write for narration or general journal, and if you look at the early general journals, you can see the names of all the members who were contributing.
Oh, there's nothing worse than an old sage giving advice, is there? But let me say, in the process, what I would want members of VCTA and VCTA to do is to remain diligent.
My wisdom to those who are future teachers and hopefully future VCTA members is push yourself forward. you'll be surprised that the people you have in awe are human beings, and they're fantastic human beings. And they will give you opportunities.
I would say to any of our members at the moment out there, you know, if you're interested in getting involved in things, come and talk to me and I will work to get you there.
First thing is to join the VCTA. Without a shadow of doubt, that was an imperative thing to do when you first, and it keeps on giving. All the way through your teaching career, it keeps on giving.
So I think we're at a good place, but that doesn't mean that we stop and say, whoopee. There are things still around that continue to challenge us.
What I reckon VCTA and its members need to do, probably for a relatively long period of time, is remain diligent and remain insistent that we make that curriculum available to all Victorian and Australian kids.
My vision is that we will have a better place in terms of our breadth of our offerings to our members.
It's been the friendships and the connections that I've made. It's been a great outcome all round for me.
The association has never been inward looking.
We keep moving and nothing's going to stop us.
All the way through your teaching career, it keeps on giving.
There is no price you can put on the connections I've now made.
Don't be afraid to become an individual member, because this is an organisation that will welcome you.